Alright, that's not what an empty mind is supposed to be. It's not a state where you doze off into the dreamland. It's something else. Sometimes I just don't get why some people are so put off by the idea of emptying the mind, as if it's gonna make them feel dull or stupid even. What I'm about to tell you here has a pretty good chance of opening you up to the possibility of having a clearer perception, or maybe not. This is how all of humanity begins. This cute little thing doesn't have any sort of idea about herself and the world surrounding her, completely innocent and very receptive to the external stimuli. As she tries to survive this cold, harsh world, she has to learn, experiment, and learn again. Sometimes she needs to curry favors with her parents and gain their love and approval so that she would be protected in return. Even before she could properly walk, this little thing has already learned that kissing ass works. Then the whole dating game, the nose for the wealthy guy that would give her financial security, the flicks of hair, the revelation of the long neck, giving him the eyes, and before you know it, marriage contract signed, future secured, safety guaranteed. And as we grow, we learn that certain techniques are essential for survival, and that there are better ones out there. And so the hunt for more knowledge begins. We are human beings hardwired to accumulate more and more knowledge, the latest news, the hottest gossips and trends. Sometimes, if we miss out on a day's worth of the latest happenings, we might even feel like dying. Information is such a central cog to our survival instincts. We've become the hunters and no longer the hunted, exactly due to this exact reason. Then at some point, we become so equipped with the gadgets and the constant stream of information that comes with it that we tend to feel like we are already up to date with everything. Just look where we are right now. So sophisticated and so convenient, genuinely believing that we have nothing more to learn. We are now in that state of mind that's already full and would reject any new knowledge and deem it surplus to requirements, even though it could be useful info that may well improve one's survival odds. Maybe right now you're already at a point where you consider yourself very knowledgeable, and you might even have some students listening to you. And having someone follow your every step kinda gives you a great sense of pride, like he'll do anything for you because he respects you so much for the knowledge you have, and you feel like you're on top of the world. But this may not be a good thing after all. You might enjoy playing the master, and obviously you wanna maintain that status quo with your students, and yet you've put yourself in a place where you're sort of protecting your reputation of knowing everything when you freaking don't. And when people challenge you, obviously you gotta take a stance every time and defend it with all your might. And what happens is, we become no longer receptive to the whole thing. When something that's being said could be vital information to someone else, we could be reacting to it as if someone's physically attacking us. So, in this protective shell that we've created for ourselves, no new insight could ever come into our consciousness. In short, we stopped growing. And the crazy thing is, we did it to ourselves. This feels like the perfect moment to insert another good old Zen story. Once upon a time, there was a Zen master whose wisdom was highly sought after. Many people traveled long distances to seek his enlightenment. One day, a bright young scholar came to visit him, seeking his advice. The scholar approached him and politely said, "I have come to ask for your teachings on Zen." Several minutes into the conversation, it was clear that the overzealous scholar came with his mind full of his own views and opinions. No matter how many times the master tried to teach him, the young student just wasn't able to listen and absorb the master's wisdom. Realizing this, the master calmly suggested them having a cup of tea together. With quiet confidence, the master poured his guest a cup. To the young student's astonishment, the master kept pouring and pouring until the cup was filled to the brim. The liquid even spilled onto the table and eventually onto the scholar's robe. The scholar was left confused and shocked. The master then calmly replied with a smile, "You are like this cup." Let me share with you a bit of my own story. I began reading a decent number of books, like since 4 or 5 years ago, and I was reading so much that I started thinking, wow, I'm actually reading all these books? I'm pretty sure no one else has this kind of powerful information. And this was when the troubles began for me personally. Like when I was with friends, I had this urge of talking more than I should have been, thinking, look, I've read all these books, surely you've got nothing on me. If someone tried to point out my errors or something, I would get defensive all of a sudden, as if books would somehow put me above making human mistakes. It's like I had created this barrier around me that sort of prevented me from listening to new, potentially useful knowledge. In all fairness, it also happened the other way around. I began noticing that some of the people I've talked to also tend to have a full cup. Like, when I genuinely have something to say to them, they are usually fixed in their own set of views and opinions. Instead of listening to something that might actually help them, they chose to stack their own words on top of mine. And this kind of phenomenon is so very clear to me that sometimes it's pretty straightforward to identify the ones that are open-minded enough and the ones that aren't, and I usually leave them in their own world of ideas and assumptions. That's like what humans do. Like, we're extremely reluctant to find out that the knowledge we've got turns out to be complete falsehood. That's exactly what a full cup is. Nothing ever goes in anymore. If a full cup makes a mistake, he's more likely to deny it than to admit it. Then of course, if he never admits to any mistakes, then he would never learn from them. It's very likely that despite amassing thousands of terabytes of information, our mental model of reality is still far from complete. Perhaps it will never be. Sure, we could have read tons of books, attended countless number of seminars and retreats, and yet there's surely some information out there that we just don't know about. It's like we shouldn't really consider ourselves to be adults that know absolutely everything. No, we should actually stay as these innocent little babies that might have known certain things better than the other babies, but are still open to the idea of learning more. Oftentimes, we are like that enthusiastic scholar who stops listening to the other person, believing that he already knows so much. And so, we no longer entertain the possibility of the other person being right, without which there will be no prospect for change and growth. Perhaps what's more difficult than acquiring any knowledge is the ability to unlearn it all and see with fresh eyes once again. First, empty your cup.